you very much. Thanks to Emmett for inviting me back as well. And discussing a similar topic, and to update that topic, and perhaps to add some other issues as well to it. That is the Egyptian nuclear program. On April 23rd, the Russians apparently agreed to finance the development of four, and actually to work with the Egyptians on the ground to develop 4 new nuclear power plants, which were first developed as an idea under President Hosni Mubarak. And they're also going to help develop an existing research reactor complex in Shas. Now, what this all means is that we may very well see Egypt, while it's starving to death, racing to do 2 things at once, with the help of Russia and perhaps other foreign donors. And that is to desperately try to get a new power supply to replace fuel, imported diesel fuel, other kinds of fuel, petroleum-based fuel, to run electricity, to provide electricity, etc. And also to develop a nuclear weapon, because that's been Egypt's on and off objective since 1954. In December of 1953, President Dwight Eisenhower gave a speech at the United Nations about the peaceful atom. And shortly after that, President Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, decided that he would go for a nuclear program in Egypt to get the Russians, it was the Russians then, the Soviet Union, to provide them first with a very small research reactor with just 2 megawatts. And now they have one that's about, I think, 200 megawatts. And it's been developed with the Argentinians as well. That came up was put online in 1998. They also have a hot cell laboratory in Shas, which allows them to take spent fuel rods from the larger of the 2 research reactors and extract plutonium. And they're able to extract up to somewhat over 6 kilograms of plutonium per year. It only takes 6 kilograms to make 1 nuclear weapon on plutonium. So since 1998, they theoretically have been able to produce, say, 14, 15 bombs or more. We don't know what they've done with this plutonium. They have various other programs using nuclear material, atomic material, fissile material, in progress, a lot of medical research, isotopes, etc. We don't know how it's all being used, however. And there have been serious incidents in the nuclear program in Egypt with the IAEA in the 2000s. Since in 2004, the IAEA discovered that there had been illegal activity, perhaps, certainly things not allowed under the guidelines, such as experiments with enriched uranium. Possibly in fact, they found traces of highly enriched uranium, which is the same thing that happened when the IAEA discovered that Iran was perhaps edging towards nuclear weapons. They discovered that Pakistan had been working with them, giving them highly enriched uranium. They found traces of it in Iran, at their facilities there. And so we have, then they issued a very weak report in 2005. Then it was under Mohammed Baradei, who was the former head of the IAEA. He's an Egyptian lawyer and very soft, I think, on Egypt's program. According to, he's also very soft on Iran's program, as you may recall. And he basically issued a very, very mild rebuke to Egypt for doing these things. And it was repeated in 2007, and nothing has happened. It reopened the investigation, and nothing has really happened as a result of that so far. Now, during this time, Egypt was, until under Abdel Nasser, from 1954 until 1968, Egypt was openly, especially after 1960, it was openly working towards a nuclear weapon. And the only thing that really stopped them from achieving it was lack of financial resources after the '67 war. So in 1968, they announced that they're not going for a weapon any longer. 1970, President Sadat, Nasser was replaced by President Sadat, and he works with the Americans to produce a peaceful nuclear program in Egypt, a nuclear power program in Egypt. They have plans for multiple plants that go nowhere in the end for lack of funding, basically. And then in the era of President Hosni Mubarak, who succeeded Sadat in 1981 after he was assassinated by Islamists, Mubarak, gradually edged into developing a nuclear program, power program. And he also launched this program in the United Nations to try to pressure Israel to sign the NPT or to give up its nuclear program. And it was called Weapons of Mass Destruction Free Zone in the Middle East. This movement, which began in the early 1990s, is very crucial to our understanding of what's happening now with Morsi, President Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood and the Egyptian nuclear program, and I'll get to that in a second. By the time that Mubarak was out of office, when he was removed in 2011, the Egyptians had developed, with the encouragement of the IAEA, a plan for 4 nuclear power plants, 1,000 megawatts or more, each across the delta. One of them is going to be at Daba. This is the one they wanted to start with first. That's about 120 kilometers west of Alexandria on the Mediterranean. This particular place in 2000, I think early 2012, was the object of an attack by the local citizenry who were outraged at the operation of this plant, or the development of this plant for nuclear power purposes in their area. And an unknown amount of radioactive material was stolen from that site. So that's another side issue to be considering. There may already be material for a dirty bomb or something floating around Egypt, and Egypt is now, in my opinion, a terrorist state. So we don't know what terrorists in the terrorist state might have that material. Now, to go back to the line of the weapons of mass destruction free zone, with Iran, of all people, Egypt is pressing for this program to be implemented by the United Nations and has had conferences organized out of Helsinki. There was one last December. They recently, of course, Israel does not cooperate with this. They recognize it for what it is. And the American government has had a sort of ambiguous attitude towards it, ambivalent attitude. But Egypt pulled out of an NPT conference because Israel would not comply, or they could not force Israel to comply with its demands to, openly declare its program and to sign the NPT or whatever. So this caused them to pull out of the conference, which I believe is a prelude to their pulling out of the NPT altogether, the Non-Proliferation Treaty regime, which means they'll no longer be subject to inspections like Iran is under inspections. They are members of the NPT. And Iran has, since August of 2012, offered to assist Egypt's nuclear program development. Since Morsi went to Tehran as head of the non-aligned movement, to exchange the leadership, trade-off between Iran and Egypt to pass the leadership baton over to them, or the Iranians to the Egyptians. And since from that time onward, there has been an attempt to strengthen relations with Iran. The Iranian president, he made a visit in February for several days. It was a very mixed reaction to him there. Sheikh al-Assad lectured him about Syria and other issues affecting Shia-Sunni relations. And Morsi himself has tried to get on Iran's good side in the Syrian issue. They've actually brought Syria into the 4-party talks that they had tried to develop over the summer of last year to resolve the Syrian issue peacefully, even though the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood also supports the Muslim Brotherhood and other Islamists taking part in the revolution against Bashar al-Assad in Syria. they're also trying to cooperate at some level. So the entire Sunni-Shia split thing is really quite exaggerated. There's in fact considerable cooperation, I think, also between Iran and Al-Qaeda, and Iran and Salafi Al-Qaeda type affiliates in Egypt and other parts of the Arab world. And also, and during the Mubarak era, Iran was actively subsidizing the Muslim Brotherhood, as well as Hamas, which is the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. So, here we have a situation where we have Iran and Egypt potentially with Iran's assistance, and also backed by Iran's biggest protector, Russia, which played a key role in developing Egypt's original nuclear program back in the 50s. Altogether creating a new level of danger in terms of nuclear proliferation. And on the one hand, we'll have the nuclear weapons in the hands of Shia, a Shia terrorist state, and the other one will have it in the hands of a Sunni one, but this one will be subsidized directly by the United States. And I would leave you with that question, do we want to continue to subsidize that? Because no matter what we do in Egypt, so long as we continue to subsidize the government, we're ultimately going to be assisting this process by displacing funds that would be, and by replacing funds that they would otherwise need to use for this program. They've also, by the way, asked for $3 billion from China, which China has not replied to. So whatever else they get, whatever money they get from the IMF, which they may receive $4.8 billion soon, or other sources, because the Qataris gave them $3 billion recently, and as Professor Goldman said, there's no way they're ever going to catch up in terms of their foreign reserves. You know, whatever other money comes in, they will never have enough to deal with their civilian population's needs. That's not their priority. Their priority is nuclear weapons.